Well, hi guys. Coach Jerry here at the Protocol in Tucson, Arizona, and welcome to the May Mobility Warmup. The drills that we're going to be working on this month come to us from a book that was written by Dr. Kelly Starrett called Built to Move. I'll put a link to that book in the description. It's a really good book that is totally worth checking out. We certainly don't have time to get into all the things that he talks about in that book, but some of the things that are movement-based are the ones that are going to be focused on. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to begin the warm-up with some breath work. And the first thing we're going to be doing here is what's called the CO2 tolerance test. The way Dr. Kelly Starrett describes this is a CO2 tolerance test is also known as the breath hold test. It assesses how long you can hold your breath before feeling the urge to breathe again. It's a simple way to measure your body's tolerance to rising levels of carbon dioxide. This test can be a useful indicator of respiratory health and stress levels. So here's how it works. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to set a metronome to beep every 1 per second. So it's going to be basically beating on the second. You want to find either a comfortable place to sit or you can do it lying down. And the way it works is you come down and you're going to take 3 deep belly breaths. After your 3 deep belly breaths, you take a 4th breath and then you release that 4th breath as slowly as possible. That is when you catch the metronome. So the metronome will sound like this. I imagine the microphone is picking that up, so it's just pulsing on the second. And since everybody in the class is going to be doing this at a different speed, the metronome will help you count. So when you lie down and you take your 3 deep breaths, so a nice deep belly breath in, big breath out. You'll do that 2 more times. And when you take that 4th breath in, you start timing your exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're just counting in your head, but you're just following that metronome, and you're trying to let that exhale out as slow as possible. It's kind of hard to demonstrate on a video, but once you practice it a couple times, you'll have a chance to, I'm going to shut that off so I don't have to talk over it. You'll have a chance to figure out how long you can go. And the goal is, of course, as you work through this warm-up drill throughout the course of the month, you're trying to make that exhale just last a little bit longer. If you're blowing it out and you feel the urge to swallow, once you take that swallow, the test is over. The other thing is you also want to be careful not to torture yourself. This is, there's no prize for having the longest CO2 tolerance test. Also, if you've never Googled what is a good CO2 tolerance test, don't. Practice the drill for the month and then check in after you've gotten good at it to see what a good test is. A lot of us tend to be the competitive types that want to get a really good CO2 tolerance test. That's not the objective. It's breath work that just helps your body develop better breathing mechanics through the diaphragm. The next exercise that we're going to be working on is called a sit to stand. A sit to stand is another one of those drills that's simple but not easy. The way the book describes it is you will begin in a cross-legged seated position, and the objective is to stand up as easily and as efficiently as possible. And easily and efficiently as possible is defined as not needing to use help from hands, knees, hips, basically as little help as possible. The finished product should look like this. And then be able to sit right back down in that same position. Now, you may be looking at that going, yeah, Jerry, that's great for you. I can't do that. That's fine. Maybe you'll need to put a hand on the ground. Maybe you'll need to put a knee on the ground. Maybe you'll need help from the other hands to get up from here. Whatever it is, in the first few weeks of practice, try to find your starting point and try to get a little bit better each time. Now, the way we have this written in the warm-up is it says 5 on each side. What does that mean? Well, if you are going in one direction, like for example, my right hand and my right knee, I want to take 1 to the right, and I also want to take 1 to the left. In other words, 5 in each direction. Let's assume that you have the full sit to stand like I first demonstrated. You'll notice that my left leg is crossed over my right leg to come up and to come back down. So in this warm-up, 5 on each side is going to mean I'm going to do 5 this way, and also make sure I can do 5 in the other direction as well. So that, folks, is the sit to stand. The next exercise we're going to be working on is called the standing on one leg, eyes closed drill. This drill consists of standing on one leg with your eyes closed. Thank you. Before we get into it, I want to start with standing on one leg with the eyes open, which is just a simple drill of holding your leg out like so. And you can watch the clock and count up to 20, and then practice doing the same thing on the other side. Once you've got standing on one leg with eyes open, then we'll start doing standing on one leg with eyes closed. With this one, obviously you're not going to be able to see the clock. We can either continue running the metronome if you'd like, or you can just count to 20 in your head. I'll be a good sport here. You will notice that as soon as you close your eyes, the stability of it becomes significantly more difficult. But this is a great drill to train your balance. And again, you want to be working on this on both sides equally. And the goal is to do 20 seconds of each one on both sides. The next exercise that we're going to be practicing is called the Grok hang. Now, we have done these in several other warm-ups, so I'll keep this description pretty short. We're going to take a double overhand grip and settle into hanging from a bar. There are two types of Grok hangs, active and passive. Active is what you see me doing right now, where I'm trying to actively pull my shoulders away from my ears as much as I can. A passive Grok hang, I'm going to let myself come down. My shoulders are going to be much closer to my ears. This is going to give my shoulders some traction, but not everyone's shoulders are healthy enough to be able to do this. So, passive hang, active hang. I recommend, if you can do both, that you should practice both. But if the passive hang is painful, I recommend the active hang. I have a pretty long rep range on this one, or I should say time range, of anywhere from 15 to 120 seconds. 120 seconds would be an A+ score. If you're not able to hang anywhere near that long, this is something that I would challenge you to build up increased capacity for, and that is the Grok hang. The next exercise that we're going to be working on is called the dowel rod mobility drill. This is another shoulder exercise, and this is for shoulder mobility. You're going to need a dowel rod for this, and if you're doing these at home, you can use a PVC pipe. If you don't have a PVC pipe, you can take one of your brooms and unscrew the broom off the handle, and that'll give you the broom handle. I'm going to hold the dowel rod in the crooks of my finger between my thumb and my first digit, and it's going to look like this. So with my head down, holding the dowel rod in the crooks of my fingers, keeping my head on the ground, I'm going to lift up as high as I can, elbows straight, pause for a moment, come back down. You're going to be doing 10 reps of this. And just a brief pause at the top is good. You may notice that your range of motion is not what you hoped it would be. This is a great exercise to help work on improving that end range of shoulder mobility. And the last thing that we're going to be working on in this warm-up is an old favorite, the Prying goblet squat. For the Prying goblet squat, you do not necessarily need to use a kettlebell. As a matter of fact, if your squat is very limited in range of motion, I actually recommend doing this holding on to something, like a suspension trainer, like the jungle gyms that we have here at the gym. It is not necessary to do this with a kettlebell. Regardless of what you're holding on to, the drill itself is very similar. So we're going to bring the kettlebell up into the goblet position. We're going to settle into a nice deep squat. And then while we're down here, we're going to start to mobilize. The first thing that I want to work on is my ankles. So I'm going to shove my knee right over my two middle toes and do the same thing on the other side. You can see here I'm just working on mobilizing the ankle. I'm also going to press out with my elbows, trying to push my knees apart like I'm trying to pull the hips out of their sockets. Don't worry, it won't happen. You can also extend the kettlebell, bring your chest up higher and come back down. And we're going to be doing this for 5 repetitions. So before we get up, remember, got to get that air. Hup, abs tight, and come up. So at the bottom of each rep, you'll just come down, do a few mobilizations. Hup. I also want to show this from the side view. When I settle into this squat position, you'll notice that my back is nice and flat. You want to make sure that you're not rounding your back. Another thing that's really important is when I'm mobilizing my ankles, I don't want to twist. In other words, I don't want to put unnecessary torque on my knee. The mobilization that I'm doing is exclusively in the ankle. In other words, my knees are tracking over my toes when I'm doing those mobilizations. This other thing creates unnecessary torque, which is not going to feel good on the knee. After your 5 reps, set the kettlebell down, and that's the Prying goblet squat. So guys, that is the warm-up for the month of May. We're only going to be doing 1 round of this one this month, so as soon as you're done with these drills, you can get right into the task-specific warm-ups that you have for the particular training session of the day. That's all we got for today. We'll see you again soon.